Get started in about 30 seconds here. All right, and we're going to start. So good morning. I'm Brian Dino. I'm with the Ed Tech team. And this is a session on Google Drive Basics, which is going to be central to pretty much any online learning you'll be doing with your students. To help monitor the chat, we have my fellow colleague, Luke Mund, who'll be looking at the chat. And also in the chat, we have posted a link to a resource document. Feel free to pull that up. That will have the link to the question and answer document. If there's questions that you want to ask, just go ahead and type them in there. There's also a link to the slide deck, which I'll be going through. And when we are recording this webinar, when the recording's done, we'll put it back onto that resource document and also where our other webinars are. So a few things, I'm going to share my screen with you. And Luke, keep me honest here. If there's some technical glitches or if I'm going too fast, just let me know.
Yeah, I got your back. Again,
on the slide deck here on the bottom right, there's that quick link to all the resources for this session here. If you need to leave and want to come back, just bookmark that page and you'll be able to find all the resources for this session. A little bit of housekeeping. Again, there's the link. We are recording this session, and we got Luke, who will be monitoring the chat and the Q&A. Hey, if this is your first time doing this, just you're in a session like what's called Google Meet right now. And if you, I think everybody's muting themselves, but if you want to learn how to mute, you just find the mute button right there on your screen, and we won't be able to hear your screen. So if you want to talk, just unmute it. There's also, earlier in a couple sessions, we needed some folks who needed captions. So there's also an option for captions there. So you could change that. And if you have a hard time getting to the chat, there's a graphic right here where you can just click on chat. And again, there's also a link to the question and answer document. I'll just show you what that looks like. It's right there. So that's linked on the very first page. Here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Google Drive. We'll touch a bit on Docs, just a little bit on slides and sheets. Those are all items that are stored in your Google Drive. Talk about how to organize your Google Drive, how to share items within your Google Drive, and then we'll do one short demo, if there's time, on how to convert a Microsoft document into Google, and then also get them into your Drive. There are some, again, you should have access to this slide deck, and there are some advanced things in there which we probably won't cover, but we included them in the slide deck in case you want them. So, how to access Google Drive. This slide is here because you might have to show your students, especially we have a lot of students who might be doing this for the first time at the younger level. To get to it, first of all, a Chrome browser is recommended. That will work best with using Google Drive. It can work in other browsers, but we start to see challenges when other browsers are used, like Internet Explorer, Safari, or Firefox. So Chrome browser is recommended. To get to Drive, there's a couple ways. You can go right here, drive.google.com. And if you're not already logged in, obviously everybody here watching this is logged in because it's only open to DPS folks. But you can go to drive.google.com and enter your username and password there. Another way is just to go to gmail.com and log in again with your credentials and then you can get to Drive that way. The third step here, you might need to share with some of your students if they're having troubles logging in. Let me just show you that. If you go to the DPS website, dpsk12.org, and scroll to the bottom, there's a link for DPS Google here. So if you need to instruct your students, again, I'm going to the DPS main website, dpsk12.org. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom, and at the bottom there are some quick links here. And there's a quick link for DPS Google. When I click on it, that's where I would use my username and password. I have this link here because you might have some students who have trouble logging in, and send them to this site, because right here are the resources and the links they can go to reset their password, retrieve their username, etc. So that will be helpful for any students who are having access to their DPS Google account. Okay, so those are 3 ways to access Google Drive. Go back to presenting here. So what is Google Drive? Essentially, it's where all your online files are stored. And the good thing is, if for DPS educators, you can store the world in there. Everything is unlimited. So we have teachers who store a lot of their videos, which are large files, and there is no charge. For those of you with private Google accounts, you might already know that they are charging once you get above a certain limit. And the most common things we see in there are what are called Google Docs, Google Slides, Google Sheets, and those, if you work in Microsoft, those are the equivalents down below. So Microsoft Word, the Google equivalent is a Google Doc. If you work in PowerPoint, the Google equivalent is a Google Slide. And if you work in Excel, the Google equivalent is a Google Sheets. So we have sessions on these on Google Slides and a few other things that we could point you to later if you have questions on that. So Google Drive is where you're going to store all of your electronic files. Let's talk about that. Let's look at the interface here. So on the left side of the Google Drive, you have your navigation. And we're going to go into each one of those elements there. You also have recently opened files. So if you're working in something, say during that day, your most recent files will show there. If you do any particular add-ons, those will show up on the right-hand side. We cover some add-ons in other later PD sessions. And of course, you can also use folders, and you can, we'll show you how to organize those too. I'll just give you a quick peek here of the navigation and what each one means here. Let me just show you my Google Drive for a moment, and I will pull that up. So this is my current Google Drive. Here are, I'm a big fan of recent. So if you click on recent, it shows you the most current items you have accessed here. And again, since I've been very active in Drive, it's only it shows me everything I've been in the last looks like 3 or 4 days, but the items I've opened the most are right here on the top. So to create something new in Drive, you would go to New. We'll do an example of that in just a moment, but that's where you would create new folders, new files. If you wanted to start uploads, we're going to do a new Google Doc in just a moment here and show you how to share it. Priority is a new feature this year from Google, and excuse me, it's where if you're working on something, a project or something very frequently, you can organize those files right into priority. It's a little workspace, so you don't have to, it's like a priority folder with all of your files for that. I'll show you how I use that in a moment. Shared with me are documents or anything that anybody in DPS wants to share with you. If somebody shares something with you, you may not have asked to be shared with. You can actually go ahead and delete it. It won't delete it from, won't delete the document, but it'll delete it from your view. But those are items that other people might have shared with you intentionally or even accidentally. Recent is what we just covered. It's all your recent files. Starred might be helpful for some of you. Again, if you have an item that is very important and you want to refer back to, you can put a star onto it. And when you click on starred, it'll go to that subset of items that have been starred. And trash is just what it is. It's where when you remove something from Drive, it goes into trash. They're not really gone until you actually remove the trash files, and then they're gone from your Google Drive. Hey, Luke, how we doing? Any questions coming up or anything? Am I going? Is the pacing okay?
Yeah, you're doing good. We just had some question about organization, but I said that's going to be coming in.
Okay. Okay.
Well, look at that. It's coming.
Here we are. So organization. Again, to remove a file, you can, this is your DPS Google Drive, so you can remove it. When you remove it, it'll go to the trash. It'll stay into the trash until you actually empty your trash. You have the power to rename files, to create folders. Let me just demonstrate those first three things here. Let me go to My Drive, and I'm going to do a quick new document. I'm going to go to New Doc. It creates a new Google Doc. This document is untitled right now, and I am the only one who can see this right now. But we'll call this a test document for today. As soon as I start typing, it automatically saves in Google. If I wanted to title it, I could come up here and click in there and type the title. So now it is titled, the test document for today. It is stored in My Drive. And we'll talk about sharing when we get to that. I'm going to go ahead and close this, though. I'm going to close this document. Notice it's opened in a new tab up here. So I'm going to close that tab. The document is still saved. How do I know that? Here's my Google Drive. And if I click on Recent, it's a little slow. If I click on Recent, I can see the document I just created, the test document for today. I'm the owner of it. I could go back into it. If I don't want it, I have a lot of options if I right-click on that file. So I could right-click, and these are all the options I have on that file. If I wanted to remove it, I could remove it, and it would go into my trash. We'll talk about sharing in just a moment. But I renamed that file. If I wanted to move it into a folder, I could. Let's talk just a bit about folders. So again, these are all my recent files. If I come back to My Drive here, I have Priority, I have My Drive. So all my files are stored right here in My Drive. And I have created folders for a lot of the projects that I work on. These are all the folders here. If I want to create a folder, I click on New, and these are all my options. Again, I can just, the very top one is folder. So I can create a folder, and I'm going to do just underscore March 26th. I'm going to create that. It creates that folder underneath my drive here. I put it at the very top because I put an underscore there. Otherwise, it would be alphabetical. And if I click into that folder, there's nothing in there. If I wanted to move that new document I just created, I could go to Recent, and I can find the document I just created here. And let's see. I don't see the one I just created. Let me refresh that. Let's go to another document. So this document here, if I right-click on it, I have all of these options with that file. I can move it to, if I click Move To, I can move it right in to that folder I just created. So I'm going to move this file right into the new folder, March 26th. And when I move it, I get a message down here, and it says that file has been moved from my drive to March 26th. Now, when I go back into my drive, the folders, when I click in March 26th, I see there's that file that I just moved into there.
Hey, Brian, when you're saying right-click there too, on Mac and Chromebook, that's 2-finger click.
Thank
you.
you.
You put down with 2 fingers. So.
Thank you. Yes, and it's very helpful to bring up that secondary menu because it'll save you time, and it also gives you all of the options. So again, I am right-clicking. I can right-click on any item in Drive. Right now, I'm right-clicking on a document. I can also right-click on that folder I just created, and I have numerous options there. Let me come back to our slide deck just to make sure I'm in sequence here. So I created a folder. I moved a file into a folder. If I wanted to, on number 5 here, I could color code my folder. I could star it. Let me just demonstrate that. So again, I am back in my drive. This document in my folder right here, if I right-click on it, if I were to pull up the menu, I could add it to my starred, and you can see it adds a star to it. And now, when I click on starred in my drive, it should show up. I have a lot of starred items, and there it is right there. Okay, so it just depends how often you use your drive. I don't use starred that much because it hasn't been that effective for me. If I wanted to use priority, I'll come back to my drive again, and I'm going to click on priority, and Google Drive allows me to create up to 8 workspaces with files for a particular project or anything that I deem to be priority. So you would click on create workspaces, and it would create that workspace for you. I am maxed out on workspaces right now, but here's one priority workspace. It's let's come down to this one here called Digital Citizenship. This is a priority workspace. I could remove it, I could hide it, but these are files specifically for that workspace called Digital Citizenship. So I can, with priority, I can quickly go to files that pertain to my priority projects. So that is a new feature. Again, you would create a workspace, and let me show you how to add a file to that. So I'm going to go back to my Google Drive. Let's go back to recent. Let's say I wanted to add a file. Let's say this file here. If I right-click on it, I can add it to any of my 8 priority workspaces right through this menu here. If I add it to a workspace, it would add that. In fact, let's just do that for now. Let's add that to Digital Citizenship. So this file has been added to my priority workspace. I'm going to come back up to priority. And you can see in my priority workspace right here, it added that file to this priority workspace called Digital Citizenship. So use that if you want to quickly get to high priority items. I'm going to come back to our slide deck here. The last item in here is number 8, advanced search. This is your best friend. I use search all the time, especially if you have a lot of items in your drive. So search is at the very top here. I'm going to pull down the little caret. I have all of these options. So let's say I'm searching. I can search for any type of item. Let's say I want to search for a particular presentation. I want to search for a presentation. I can search for anybody who owns it. How about maybe just for me for now? I can look anywhere. Date modified, I can specify that. I'm going to say the last 90 days. And if I know the name of it, I can put that in there. Actually, maybe I forgot the name of it. So I'll leave that blank and I'll hit search. And this is, again, where Google excels. That's how they got started as a search engine company. And there are all my presentations owned by me in the last 90 days. So search is very powerful. Let's say if you, here's one of its most powerful features. You can just put in the words. So if you're like, I remember there were some keywords on remote learning. And let's say, I don't know what it was, but I know it was in the last 30 days, but it had the words remote learning and it was owned by anyone. Now this could be a very wide search, but let's just see. So this brings up anything in the DPS Google Drive. You could see anything that has the words remote learning in it, even PDFs. It'll search PDFs for these words remote learning. It's a very powerful search tool. Now you can see what other people are sharing with you or making available. There's other owners, there's other people in here whose documents are coming up when they've been modified. But that is the power of search. So get in the habit of using that if you really can't go directly to the files you want to find in Drive. Search is very, very powerful. All right, I'm coming back to my slide deck here. And we talked about, again, removing unwanted files. This is the right-click menu you have on any file. We'll talk about sharing in just a moment. We moved a file to a new folder. We started. You can also rename a file or a folder. So again, that's the right-click power. Same thing here with folders. You can create a folder and organize your folders how you see fit for your workspace. You can also star a folder as shown on this slide here. If you want to change colors, you can do that. So again, I'm going to come back to my drive. Here are all my folders right here on the left side. Here's the folder I created for this session called March 26th. If I right-click on it, I have lots of options. I could rename it. I could change the color, say to a spring green.
Deborah, that's exactly your question right there is what he did.
And since I can do that for any of my folders right there, I have quite a bit because I've been working in Drive for several years. But if you're just starting to use Drive, you will start building it up and you can customize it how you see fit. I'm coming back to the slide presentation again. And again, we talked about starred. Use priority if you want. Again, advanced search is very powerful. You can specify any of that criteria for anything you're searching for in Drive. How we doing, Luke? Anything before I talk about document sharing?
No, we're doing good. We just had that question about color,
Okay.
and there you
Great.
go.
All right, so sharing is probably one of the most important things you need to pay attention to, because since you have the power to create documents or view documents in Google Drive, you have to know what you're sharing and who you're sharing with. So let's talk about sharing. This slide here, again, I'll read it just to re-emphasize again. Since we're working with student information and student sensitive grades and student sensitive information, don't share any data without anybody outside of Denver Public Schools. And anytime you share something, a link or a file, make sure you know who you're sharing it with. That's really the importance of those two slides. As you know, we have about 90,000 students, and that means they also have 90,000 Google accounts. So we are a DPS Google district. So know when you share that you might accidentally share with a DPS student. So let's make sure you understand the basics of sharing. You can share with individuals. So if I wanted to share just something with Luke, I can do that. If I wanted to share, give him editing rights, I could do that too. I'm going to do a demo in just a moment here. I can also share with the link or share a folder. Let me just demonstrate that. So I'm going to come back to my Google Drive. Here's my Google Drive, and I'm going to create a new document. So I'm in my drive. I'm going to click on New. I'm going to go to Google Docs. It opens up a document editing window. And let's just call this temp. Oops, wrong keyboard. Temp doc for today, 3/26/2020. Here's my Google Doc. I'm going to click up there. Now it has a title. And that's the title of the document up here. I can, it looks similar to Microsoft Word. I can type headings, lesson plan, etc. So here's my document. It's opened in a new tab up here. If again, now if I want to share this, on the right click of any Google Drive item, there's a share button. And when I click on share, here are the sharing properties for this document. Only I right now can share this or edit it since I created it. And it's not shareable with anybody right now. But if I wanted to share it with a particular person, I could enter their name in here. And as you see, I'm typing. If I share it with Luke Hanish, I can see he's got a 6-digit number. That means he's a student. So I want to make sure I have the right person. Luke Mund is my ed tech colleague. And I want to make sure I have his right email. And there's his email. People might have 2 or 3 emails. They should all go to one email. So if you pick the wrong one, it should go to the correct email address. If you're not sure, you should ask the person which DPS Gmail they use. There are a few folks in the district with 4 or 5 DPS Gmails when you get to this. So right here, I am sharing this only with Luke Mund. And over here, I'm going to give him certain rights. Right now, he can edit this document. If I don't want him to edit it, I can only let him view it. If I want him to comment, I also have that option. It's also going to notify him. It's going to send him an email saying, giving him a link to this document and notifying that I have shared it with them. So that's one way to share with an individual. I'm also going to click on Advanced just so you can see the Advanced window here. It's really the same thing. It says I'm sharing this with one individual. I can type more people in there if I would like. If I wanted to share it with my boss, I could put her name in there, and I would share it with those two. So that's the most safest way of sharing a document is with individual people. Only they have access to it. If I wanted to share it with a group of colleagues, I'm going to cancel out of here. And again, I click on my share button. I haven't shared it with anybody, but there's an item here called shareable link. If I click on shareable link, this creates a document with a link right here. Here's the link, and pay attention to the sharing properties here. Anyone at DPS with this link can now view my document. So it's important to understand that. If I don't like that, I have other options here. But anyone at DPS with the link can view. I could copy that link, and then I can send it to my team. Let's say I wanted them to be able to edit this document. I could copy that link. I could send it to them. However you want to communicate with your colleagues, I can open up my email browser, send an email, say, here's the link to our document. But anybody now who has that link would be able to edit this document. Let's look at a few other options here. If I click on more, these are the sharing properties you need to understand. So right now it's set anyone in the DPS with the link can edit that document, or actually can view the document. If I click this option, anyone at DPS can find it and access it. That means if they use the search feature I just showed you, if they search for these words, they would be able to find this document and view it. If I click this link, anyone with the link, that means anyone in the world who gets the link to the document, they can see it. And if I want to make it public on the web, that's the option too. Generally, that is not required unless if you're doing parent communication. These top two items are your best bet, because a lot of our parents may not have Gmail accounts and they just want to view it on the web. Okay, so those are your options. So know who you're sharing with, and then what access are you giving them? The ability to view, to comment, or to edit.
Brian, we had a question about sharing a worksheet with students and having them complete it. What are your thoughts on that?
If you share a worksheet with students, that could be, if you give them the ability to edit it, then you might have a challenge with, like, say 15 or 20 kids or even 30 kids putting all of their answers onto one worksheet. So that could be a challenge if you share one item with them. Depending on the level of your kids, if they're 6 through 12, you could send out a template and have them make a copy. So let's say this was a worksheet. Students could come up to here under the file menu and they can make a copy of this. And if this were a worksheet, they'd make their own copy. So that's one way around that.
Can you show too how to force a copy with the link?
Yeah, and that's actually coming up in the
okay, sorry.
Yep, in the pro tips, but that's we'll share that in the pro tips.
And Andrew suggested it in the chat, and I would echo that as well, that you can use one of our other platforms to automatically make copies of Google Docs. So that is either Google Classroom, Schoology, or Seesaw will all automatically make copies for each student.
And let me just come down, just to answer that question in the slide here. There's a slide solely dedicated to forcing a copy, and the directions are on there. So you could send that link to your students, and when they get the link, they would be forced to copy that document. Great question. Let me just finish up covering sharing here. So what I showed you sharing on that document, you can also do with a folder. So I'm coming back to my Google Drive, and this folder I created this morning. If I right-click on it and I click on Share, the sharing properties for this folder also appear. So I can share this folder with certain individuals, or I can also get the link to the folder, and anybody I share that link with will be able to view the contents of that folder. If I change it to edit, anybody at DPS can edit whatever is in this folder. In fact, let me just change that. So now this folder over here that I've created, you can see it's changed. There's a little person now in the folder. That means it's a shared folder. If I share this with anybody, any item I put in this folder, people will be able to see. So that's important to understand that distinction. If I'm putting sensitive items into this particular folder, and that is a shared folder, they'll have access to anything in there if I've given them sharing rights on the folder.
And Brian, we have some questions on the chat about that. This is the best way for a team to work together on different things, because every item in that folder will then be shared out with your team. So for example, Brian and I work with all the digital coaches from across the district. We have a folder that is shared with everybody. And so whenever we create something new, we just drop it in that folder so that everybody has access, and it works really well.
Great. Yes, thank you for that, Luke. And in fact, you could see on my left-hand side, all of my shared folders. Let me go into the folder we just created a week ago for remote learning. And as I click on remote learning, I can see it's a shared folder. Our team is working on all of these items in here, but as long as our team, in fact, let me go to the sharing properties for that folder. This particular folder is shared with all of our team right here. And I can see this is our team right here. They all have edit rights on this folder. And that's how we work as a team. So if you're working with a group of teachers or other folks and you need to quickly get to documents and you don't want to worry about, setting up individual sharing properties for items, create a shared folder and share that folder with everybody, and then it'll be a lot easier to work with. And again, you can change the sharing properties at any time if you're the owner of the folder. Let me just show you the folder we've created here. Again, I'm going to go to share. If I go to advanced, I see all the properties for this folder. I see that myself, I am the owner of this folder. I am the owner right here because I created that folder. Anyone who has the link can edit it. I can change all of these properties. If I don't want other people to edit it, I could click on that too, and they cannot add new people to it. Okay. All right. So we talked about sharing with individuals. There's a graphic there if you need a refresher. And again, if you're new to Drive, just start practicing. You can share with a colleague, but these graphics will help you. Sharing with the link is what I just covered. How to share with the link. If you send somebody the link, that's one way they can get access to your file. We covered the sharing properties there. And also sharing a folder. Again, on this slide, anything, the red is highlighted for a reason. Anything in a shared folder is editable. So if you've made that folder editable, anything you put in there, people might be able to change if you've shared the folder with them. There's other pro tips here, which I'm actually not going to cover. If you want to set expiration dates or sharing time limits, you can. So if you want to give somebody access to a folder for a week and then it'll expire, you can do that also. For editors, if you don't want people to download your items in the file, you can also use those settings. Those are there for you. Forcing a copy. Here's how if you wanted to force a copy. It's a bit wordy here. Excuse me, but as shown in this graphic, the only thing you need to replace are the words in yellow and change to the words copy. and you send this link to your students or to somebody. When they get it, they'll make a copy. I suggest you just try that with yourself. So do that, send yourself this text here, and you'll be forced to make a copy. Try that with your own account. Shared with me, anything that is shared with you, you can add it to your drive. I guess I didn't quite cover that, but I'll come back to that. A note about view only: if anything anybody sends you, you can make a copy. So your students probably know this, but anything that is shared, let me just demonstrate these two things here. So I'm coming back to my drive, and again, I'm going to open up, let's go to my shared with me, and let's say here's a middle school science document that was shared with me. It was shared with me. I have all of these properties. If I go up to file, I can make a copy of this, and then it would make a copy of this document only in my drive, and then that would be only my document for my review. I'd be the only person who owns that file. So there's other options there too. If I wanted to add this to my drive, I could do it several ways. I can do file, add to my drive. It adds it to my drive. I could also right click on it, and it's already added to my drive. So that option's not there. Let's go to another document right here, and I can add that to my drive if I want also. Okay, let me do a quick demonstration just on, there's some questions about folks who work in Microsoft products, converting Microsoft files. I've had a couple teachers reach out to me in my region about their Microsoft files. Google will work and convert those Microsoft files. Let me just do a demonstration. Here's a slide here that talks about it, but let me just do a demonstration. I'm going to come back to my drive again, and I'm going to find a Microsoft document file. I have one here, Microsoft Word file actually. So here is a Microsoft Word file right here. This is what it looks like sort of in Microsoft Word, but I want to make it a Google document. So the first thing I need to do is I need to drag it and get it into my Google Drive. So I'll demonstrate this. There's a couple ways to upload it. I could come to my drive and just say new file upload, and I can go find that file and upload it. But I can also drag it visually, which I like. So I have Microsoft Word document. I'm going to take it and drag it. I'm going to put it in the folder we just created today. So right there, before I do it, you'll see on my screen, it says drop files instantly and upload them to March 26th. So I'm going to do that. I get a little status window. It says it's uploading. Hey, and my internet speeds are decent. There it is. It just uploaded it right into my folder there. So I'm going to click in my folder. There it is. It's still a Microsoft Word document. I can see the little W. So I'm going to click on it. Now it's now in my drive. I first have to get it into my Google Drive. I'm going to click on it. Google recognizes it's Microsoft Word. It's still a Word document. It allows me to view it. It's still not a Google file, Google Doc. So I'm going to come over to File, and I'm going to say Save as a Google Doc. So I'm going to click on Save as a Google Doc. Now Google is saving that version as a Google Doc. And you should know depending on what is on the Word document, sometimes most of it will translate. It's file by file, okay? So now this is a Google document. How do I know that? Well, I have sharing properties over here. So it converted everything. I can now edit this document. So I can also share this document. It is now a Google Doc. If I come over to my Google Drive and I look in that folder, I see I still have the original Word document in Word format, but it created the new Google Doc for me. So I can send that out to students now as a Google Doc. So that's an example of a conversion of a Microsoft Word document. You can do that with your almost all of your Microsoft files. If you're working in Microsoft PowerPoint, you can bring them into Google Drive, save them as Google Slides. If you're working in Excel, you can do that. And you can eventually move everything over into your Google Drive and convert them all to Google Documents, or Google Files, I should say. If you have a lot of Microsoft items, I'm going to come back to the slide deck here. There's a graphic. Here's the slide I just demonstrated, how to convert a Microsoft Word doc. If you have a lot of them, there are instructions here on how to move them all at once. You can create a folder in your Google Drive and gather up all of your Microsoft files and change a setting there. Actually, I don't have time to demonstrate it, but there's a key setting there on this slide I'm showing where you convert all your uploaded files to Google Docs editor format, and it will convert all of those. If you have a lot of Microsoft Word docs, it'll convert all of them into Google Docs. So that's the way to do it more than one at a time. So those instructions are there. Luke, how we doing? Anything I'm missing?
No, you're hitting a lot of the stuff that's being asked.
Okay, good. And I'm going to come back to my Google Drive. And again, if I don't, that Microsoft Word document I just uploaded, if I right-click, I can remove it. It goes into my trash. Again, it stays there until I actually empty my trash. You can see right up here on my trash, here is the Uber kill switch, empty trash. I think once you do that, I'm not going to click on it because I'm such a pack rat, but you probably get a warning that says, beware, nothing can be retrieved after you empty your trash. And they generally mean that. Here's a few other resources on the slide deck. Like anything Google, here's their official training site here for Google Drive. And there's a cheat sheet there. There's keyboard shortcuts, productivity guides. They do a good job with their training resources. And hey, you don't need to go about this alone. There's also a link on the resource slide I shared earlier. Here's all your digital coaches. So whatever school you're at, you have somebody supporting you. So if you really get frustrated and boy, this is a tough time for a lot of teachers. And if you have kids at home and you're multitasking and you just need to talk to somebody, reach out to your digital coaches. I've already talked to a couple teachers today who just said, can you just show me how to do this? So that's what we're here for. So there's a regional coach. Look for your school and you can reach out to them with that list right there. There's also a nice Drive cheat sheet here. I think what you just covered, it's a nice visual. But the more comfortable you can get with Drive, the better you'll be able to deliver the learning that's going to be happening certainly in the next 6 weeks and even after. But Drive is here to stay, and it is it's pretty much the basics of how Google works. Once you understand the whole file structure and how to use Drive, it'll open up the ability for you to work in other areas of Google.
Brian, we have a couple questions coming in.
Sure.
Can you go over again how to create a Google Doc just by itself, not converting or anything?
You bet. So I'm in my Google Drive. And by the way, how do I know I'm in my DPS Google Drive? On the top right here, there it is, Denver Public Schools. People have personal Gmail accounts. Look for the DPS logo. So I'm going to come over to New. I have a menu. I could do a new folder. I could upload a file. I could upload a folder. I can create a new doc, sheet, or slide. I'm just going to click on Google Docs. It opens up the document window, and I can start typing. It looks very similar to Microsoft Word. And here is my document. It is not titled right now. I click on it, and I can edit my school science 4.7. And here's my Google Doc. Again, if I click on sharing properties and I go to advanced, I'm the only one who can see this right now. It's private to me. Only I can access. Okay. I could change all of that here through the settings. I could make it shareable with people with a link. I can make it public on the web. If I would just want to share it with somebody, my boss or my colleague, I could find their name here and I could type it in here and send it. They'll get an email saying, Brian Dino has shared this document, and it'll send them a link. Okay. So that's a Google Doc. If I close out of it, it's still saved. It automatically saves. I come back into my Drive. I'm like, where is it? Where is it? If I go to recent, there it is. And if I right click on it, I can move it into a folder. I have all of these options I can do with it. I could preview it. There's the preview. So that's creating a document. Other questions? We have just a few more minutes. Anybody wants to ask a question, or if Luke, if you see something that's popping up in the thread?
Yeah, question is, how can parents get support with Google Drive if they have questions?
Let's see, the first thing that comes to mind, and again, this is a school by school basis. I know the FACE team on DPS, and on our website, Remote Learning, we have a link to parent resources, but I know the FACE department is putting up resources for parents as we speak. And I know one of them is going to be how to access Google, how to access your kids. Some schools have already done that individually. But I would check the main DPS webpage too, because I just saw some updated materials there this morning on current content. But I know our team is working, putting up on our site, but also on the main DPS page. So on the main DPS page under Family Resources, they are updating that as we speak, but there's 12 different sections now on supporting students at home for various grade levels. And right now it doesn't seem to be anything on Google. So we'll have to, right now it's, not sure I see anything on Google, but we're working on updating that, because that is one of the, obviously, if the parents can't access Google, that's your first obstacle. But I would check the main DPS webpage, and I know on our remote site, which we could post into the chat here, we're going to have a link out to parent resources. So we'll put some, there's a Google Classroom overview on our site, but we'll make sure those are also posted on the DPS site. Another question. Okay. Well, thank you all. Luke, thanks for your help. If you have a chance, in the resource document I shared at the start, there's an evaluation. Let us know how we're doing. Again, get a hold of your digital coach if you just really run into roadblocks. One of us will help you through it. And it's a new time for everybody, but again, we got a great team here who can help support you, so lean on us, please. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off here in a couple of minutes. If you have any other questions, you can ask them in the chat. I got to log on to another session here at noon. Luke, thanks for your help.
You are welcome, sir.
And this recording will finish, and then we'll put it back into the on our website, but also onto the resource page I shared at the start here.